We have a history that supersedes music.
Allegedly a romantical thing. It's all right. I'll say alleged, but we know. Yeah, she hit it before Beyonce.
When Jay and I was in there doing basketball awards, you can't tell me Jay didn't see a 14-year-old girl come in the studio and shit on R. Kelly's lap.
Wendy Williams has always been bold, never one to hold back. But this time, her words may have reopened a door the industry tried to keep shut. A decades-old rumor involving Jay-Z, Foxy Brown, and a relationship that may have gone far beyond mentorship, one that some believe didn't just cross a line, it may have ended Foxy's rise before it truly began.
It's something that we kind of already thought about anyway, because, Foxy and Jay-Z work together.
Now, with a tell-all memoir on the horizon and past interviews making the rounds again, whispers that once stayed behind closed doors are becoming louder. What used to be quiet speculation is starting to sound a lot more like accusation.
A lawsuit accuses him girl with Sean Diddy Combs at a house party more than 2 decades ago.
Did Foxy Brown disappear just as she was hitting her peak? Why does Jay-Z still avoid talking about her early rise? And how does Diddy fit into all of this? The deeper you look, the clearer it becomes this time. Wendy Williams wasn't just stirring the pot. She was telling the truth. Before the headlines, before the rumors, and power games, there was a teenage girl from Brooklyn with a voice that could shake the room. Foxy Brown, born Inga DiCarlo Fung Marcan, came from a rich cultural mix, Afro-Trinidadian, Indo-Trinidadian, and Chinese roots, all wrapped in a Brooklyn-born edge. Raised in Park Slope, she didn't come from wealth, but what she had was undeniable talent. By 14, people were already taking notice. Not just casual curiosity, real attention, the kind that made music execs pause. Then came one night in 1990 that changed everything. Foxy hit the stage at a local talent show and delivered a freestyle so powerful it stopped to major producers tone and poke in their tracks. These were the same guys behind Lines Cool J's Mr. Smith album. They saw something real and put her on a track right then and there. That track. The remix to I Shot Ya, Lines Cool J heard her verse and assumed it was a male rapper. Her delivery was that strong. When he learned it was a teenage girl, he kept her on the song, just like that. Foxy was in. From there, her rise was explosive. By 1996, not even 18 yet, she was everywhere, featured on remixes for Tony Braxton's You're Mackin' Me High, Case's Touch Me, Tease Me, and most memorably, Jay-Z's Ain't Changed the Game. It didn't just make both of them stars, it linked them. The chemistry was undeniable, playful, flirty, electric. But it wasn't just about music. Behind the scenes, the whispers started. Wendy Williams wasn't the first to talk about it, but she may have been the first to say it out loud.
Allegedly a romantical thing. It's all right. I'll say alleged, but we know. Yeah, she hit it before Beyonce.
People laughed when Foxy Brown hinted at something deeper. But to her, it was never a joke. At the time, she was just a teenager. Jay-Z was 27. It started with music, a verse, a track, undeniable chemistry. For a while, they were everywhere together, hit after hit, appearance after appearance. They made each other look unstoppable. Then, suddenly, it all ended. The collaborations stopped. Jay-Z moved on. Foxy faded from the spotlight. At first, it looked like typical music industry drama, maybe a fallout, maybe her beef with Lil' Kim, but it was more than that. This wasn't just about music, it was about control. By 2003, Foxy started dropping hints. In her diss tracklet, she didn't hold back. She wasn't vague, she was calling things out directly, and Jay-Z, he didn't respond, not in the booth, not in the press, just silence. That's when the pattern shifted. Suddenly, Foxy's projects were shelved. Il Na Na 2, The Fever was scrapped, her label deal started falling apart. She began naming names, Liar, Cohen, Diddy, accusing them of sabotaging her career. But here's what no one was saying out loud. Jay-Z had stopped protecting her. Whispers in the industry said she knew too much about his private life, his behind-the-scenes world, the side he worked hard to keep hidden. And for a man who built his empire on image and secrecy, that was a serious risk. Allegedly, efforts began behind the scenes, payoffs, legal pressure, NDAs, anything to keep her quiet, because if Foxy ever spoke openly, it wouldn't just damage Jay-Z's brand, it could drag down others, including Diddy, and that's where things really start to connect. Foxy Brown wasn't just an artist, she was part of the inner circle. In the late 90s and early 2000s, she was surrounded by the most powerful men in hip-hop. Jay-Z was her collaborator, Diddy was a key supporter. These weren't just colleagues, they were power players, gatekeepers, and Foxy? She was the rising star with a memory full of secrets. At the time, people didn't think much of it, but now, with everything happening around Diddy, the lawsuits, the raids, the allegations, Foxy's past starts to feel like part of a bigger story. Because if she knew things about Jay-Z, there's a good chance she knew about Diddy, too. Foxy had a pattern, she would rise to the top and then vanish. But if you line up the timeline, her disappearances often came after she tried to speak up. There were rumors about a tape, one that allegedly showed Foxy with Jay-Z and actor Jamie Foxx. There were claims that Jay forced her to sign multiple NDAs. And buried within all that noise, speculation that Diddy knew about the tape, and may have helped cover it up. In the entertainment world, secrets are power, and Foxy, she was holding plenty. But instead of using those secrets for revenge or fame, she disappeared. Not by choice, some say, but because the same men who once called her family allegedly shut every door. Fast forward to March 25, 2024, federal agents raid Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami. They find weapons, take phones, and uncover what many feared his public image may have been a cover for something much darker. Multiple lawsuits follow. Accusations of assault, abuse, hush money, and secret deals. The same things Foxy had once hinted at, now on full display.
Lawsuit filed by R&B singer Cassie.
Cassie describing the music mogul as a vicious, cruel, and controlling man.
Foxy Brown's silence used to seem like she faded away. But looking back, it wasn't retreat, it was survival. See, here's what people rarely say out loud. Jay-Z and Diddy weren't just music moguls, they protected each other through business moves, award shows, and carefully polished images. They operated as a tight-knit circle, so if Foxy knew something damaging about one, chances are she knew just as much about the other. That's why Wendy Williams hit a nerve when she spoke up. Because if Foxy ever chose to speak freely, no NDAs, no behind-the-scenes deals, it wouldn't just be Jay-Z with something to lose. It could rattle the whole empire. But before we talk about the threat Foxy posed to them, we need to understand what they did to her. By the time most people noticed she was missing from the spotlight, she had already been through years of pain. It was easy to dismiss her. The media called her difficult, dramatic, out of control. But the truth wasn't that simple, because what they didn't report is what she never felt safe enough to say. Foxy was young, just a teen, when she entered a world run by powerful men. They shaped her image, her sound, her brand, and maybe even more than that. She didn't share her story in interviews or glossy magazine spreads, but her life told it anyway. In 2000, Foxy quietly checked herself into Cornell Medical Center. She wasn't chasing headlines, she was battling a serious opioid addiction. She later admitted she couldn't even perform without morphine. This wasn't about partying. It was about survival, and the timing matters. Her breakdown happened right after the industry started turning on her, when her ties to Jay-Z and Diddy soured, when her projects stopped, and when the same people who once championed her suddenly didn't return her calls. Then in 2001, tragedy hit. Her uncle was killed in the American Airlines Flight 587 crash. Already struggling with depression and addiction, Foxy's world fell apart. She started missing shows, canceling appearances, disappearing for months. And then, in 2005, another blow, she lost her hearing. Suddenly, a woman who made her name with music couldn't hear the beat. For over a year, she relied on hearing aids and touch just to communicate. Still, she didn't give up. In 2006, after surgery restored some of her hearing, she gave it another shot. She signed again with Def Jam under Jay-Z's leadership and recorded a comeback album, Black Roses, but the album never saw the light of day. Even after finding her voice again, the industry had moved on. The people who once called her little sis now treated her like a risk. And maybe she was, because by then, Foxy wasn't just a rapper trying to rebuild. She was a witness. She had seen everything. She remembered the deals, the secrets, the power games. She knew what happened to young women in the industry once. They stopped being useful. Foxy didn't fall off because she lacked talent. She fell because she ran out of protection. And the most important question, nobody asked it, what does it do to someone? To be silenced, dismissed, and then mocked for fading away? For years, the go-to answer for what happened to Foxy was simple: she had beef with Lil' Kim. That's why her career ended, at least. That's what they said. The media ate it up. Two Brooklyn girls, both bold, both sexy, both dropping iconic albums just 1 week apart. Foxy with Il Na Na, Kim with Hardcore. A rivalry was born, one they never asked for, but couldn't escape. But that so-called beef? It wasn't the full story, it was a distraction. The perfect cover for something much deeper.
It was outside New York City radio station Hot 97 last week. Police say it was Lil' Kim's posse versus friends of Foxy Brown. 5 guns in all, 21 shots fired, and 1 man shot in the back.
The truth is, Foxy Brown and Lil' Kim didn't start out as rivals. They actually had history. Both went to Brooklyn College Academy and shared mutual friends. Their first and only collaboration was a remix of Totals. No one else, and at that time, things were good between them. But in hip-hop, there's this pattern. Two young, bold, black women in the same lane? The industry doesn't celebrate that. It turns it into competition. It wasn't a natural feud, it was a narrative. One shaped by executives, magazines, and male rappers who saw the drama as more valuable than unity. In 1997, things escalated. The Source magazine put Foxy and Kim on the cover with the headline "Harlots or Heroines, translation, choose a side." And while fans debated over outfits and lyrics, nobody asked the real question: who was benefiting from all this division? Here's what most people don't know. Industry insiders say Liar Cohen, Def Jam's CEO at the time, actually wanted Foxy and Kim to do a joint album. It could have been legendary, but it never happened. Not because the women couldn't make it work, but because the people in power preferred them at odds. By the early 2000s, the feud had turned ugly. Kim dropped Notorious K.I.M. and threw lyrical shots. Foxy responded on Capone and Noriaga's Bang Bang, then came the real violence. In 2001, outside Hot 97, their entourages clashed. Shots were fired. 1 man was injured. The headlines were loud. But here's the part that never sat right. While the media focused on this beef, they ignored everything else Foxy was dealing with. Her addiction, her hearing loss, her shelved projects, the rumors about NDAs. Her ties to Jay-Z and Diddy, the feud became the perfect distraction, loud enough to drown out the truth. And it worked. To this day. That rivalry is treated like the biggest chapter of Foxy's story. But the reality, it was just a smokescreen. Because if you look past the drama, you start to see something else, something much bigger. When Foxy hinted at a relationship with Jay-Z while she was still underage, people dismissed it. But it was more than gossip. It was a warning sign, and maybe she wasn't the only one. What if Foxy's story wasn't isolated at all? Once you start lining up the timelines, the photos, the lyrics, and the interviews, the pattern becomes hard to ignore. Especially when it comes to the biggest name in the game, Beyoncé. Today, Jay-Z and Beyoncé are seen as the ultimate power couple. But if you rewind the clock, things start to look different. In an old 17 magazine interview, Beyoncé said she met Jay-Z when she was 18. That's the version of the story we all heard for years. But then, alt photos resurfaced. In 1997, Beyoncé, just 16 at the time, was seen with Jay-Z on the set of Destiny's Child's debut video. No. Later, in an interview with Oprah, Beyoncé said they started dating a year and a half after they met. Do the math. That timeline raises serious questions. And just like that, you start to wonder, was Foxy the only one placed in this kind of situation? Or was she simply the first one brave enough to hint at it?
We were friends first for a year and a half before we went on any date on the phone for a year and a half.
She was just 17, he was 28. Some fans brushed it off, said it was legal, said it was normal. But that's exactly where the problem starts. When powerful men take interest in much younger women, especially those just starting out in the industry, people often label it as mentorship or ambition. But for those girls, the line between opportunity and being taken advantage of? It gets blurry really fast, and it wasn't just Beyoncé. There were always quiet rumors about Aaliyah. Most remember the shocking, illegal marriage to R. Kelly when she was only 15, but what often gets left out is that Jay-Z was reportedly interested in Aaliyah too. Industry insiders, including former Death Row exec Reggie Wright, say Jay was one of several older men who were constantly around her in her final years. Aaliyah was young, famous, and always being watched and pursued by men much older than her.
Won't expose somebody that we all forget about. Y'all see this picture of Jay-Z with Aaliyah when she was. Yeah, I forgot about Jay, huh?
But here's the twist. Jay-Z didn't end up with Aaliyah. Damon Dash, Jay's business partner back then, ended up dating her. Some say Jay-Z was bitter about it. Others say he just moved on to the next thing. Either way, the pattern didn't stop.
When Jay and I was in there doing basketball awards, you can't tell me Jay didn't see a 14-year-old girl come in the studio and sit on R. Kelly's lap.
Yes, didn't just drop a casual hint. He went on Wendy Williams' radio show and laid it all out. If Jay-Z was working closely with R. Kelly on the Best of Both Worlds album, then he must have seen everything happening behind the scenes. Teenage girls in the studio, girls being treated like objects. And instead of stepping away, Jay-Z chose to stay and keep doing business. This wasn't just ignorance, it was acceptance. It wasn't about one girl, it was a pattern, a series of young women drawn into Jay-Z's world before they even knew the risks. Jay-Z has never publicly addressed these accusations. He hasn't sued for defamation, nor denied the timelines. His silence speaks volumes. Denying it would open the door for others to speak out, and if that happened, everything he built could unravel. Foxy Brown never got the closure most artists hope for. No farewell tour, no glowing Netflix special, no emotional awards night tribute. She simply vanished from the spotlight. For years, the industry acted like she'd just faded away on her own, but that wasn't true. Foxy didn't lose her fame by chance, she was pushed out. By the very people who once promised to protect her. By an industry that rewards silence and punishes those who remember. Jay-Z built his empire with careful branding and strategic silence. Diddy rose through influence, illusion, and controlling the story. But Foxy was different. She remembered. She wasn't afraid to remind people she hadn't forgotten. She was there from the beginning, long before the billions and investigations. She saw the power these men held, and more importantly, how they used it against young women who didn't yet know the cost of saying yes. Her exit from the charts wasn't because she lacked talent or relevance. It was because she knew too much too early. Even decades later, her name still makes rooms full of powerful men like Jay-Z and Diddy tense up. She never wrote a tell-all book or shared her full story, but the pieces she let slip through interviews and lyrics were enough to confirm what many suspected. Foxy Brown wasn't just caught in drama, she was a witness. A threat to the carefully crafted image those men worked so hard to protect. So when Wendy Williams said Jay-Z and Diddy fear Foxy Brown, many laughed it off as gossip. But maybe Wendy was right. Maybe that fear isn't about what Foxy did, it's about what she survived. Because some women don't need a microphone to reveal the truth. Sometimes just their presence, their memory is enough. And the knowledge that if they ever tell the full story, everything could come crashing down. Foxy Brown is still here, and as long as she is, their secrets aren't safe. All right, that's it for today. Take care.